My son's favorite movie when he was a kid, I'm sure you've probably seen it, is Toy Story. Everybody here seen at least one of the Toy Story movies? There you go. Bo's with me. The Toy Story movies. And the Toy Story movies are generally about the same. They're the story of Woody, of Buzz Lightyear, and the rest of Andy's toys, and they always end up on these misadventures. These misadventures where something's gone wrong, and they spend the most of the movie trying to get back to Andy. In the first Toy Story movie, they're trying to escape from the kid next door. His name is Sid, and he likes to blow up toys with firecrackers, strap rockets to them, and shoot them up into the sky. The second one, Toy Story 2, they're trying to escape from a man who wants to put Woody in a museum. He's a collector, like an old toy that people haven't seen in a long time, and this man wants to put him away in a museum, and so they spend time running from him and trying to get back to Andy. In the third one, Andy's, and through all these movies, it's kind of neat because Andy gets older and older. In the third movie, Andy's about going to college. He's getting ready to go to college, and the toys accidentally get put in the trash. He goes to put some donation toys in a trash bag, and his mom doesn't know what it is, and she puts it out by the curb. And so the toys end up at a daycare center, and they spend the most of the movie trying to escape from the daycare center, and again, trying to get back to Andy. And you can see this idea about this getting back to Andy and how important it is to these toys, because for a toy, the most important thing in the world to them is being a friend to a child. To spend their time, their whole life, doing what they can to help a child feel good, to help a child overcome sadness, to help a child have some joy in their life. The purpose of the toys is to be a friend. And you can see this in the theme song. I'm not going to sing it for you, but you might remember, "You've got a friend in me," right? The toys, some of you are like, yeah. And the lyrics, listen to some of the lyrics from this song. "You've got a friend in me. When the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old pal said, boy, you've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me. If you've got troubles, I've got them too. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you. We stick together and we can see it through because you've got a friend in me." Some other folks might be a little bit smarter than I am, bigger and stronger too, maybe, but none of them will ever love you the way that I do. It's just me and you, boy. And as the years go by, our friendship will never die. You're going to see it's our destiny that you've got a friend in me. You can hear the tune in your head. I mean, like I said, I'm not singing it, but you can hear the tune in your head. One of the greatest examples, and probably one of the most frequent examples turned to in our Bible about friendship, is the friendship between Jonathan and David. We've been on this series, After God's Own Heart. David is a man after God's own heart. And what can we learn this morning about friendship and the friendships that David had? We're going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 18, and we're right after where David, previously 2 weeks ago, we talked about how he had been anointed to be the next king. He still wouldn't become king for 15 or 20 years or something like that, but he had already been anointed. He'd already been chosen that he is going to be the next king. And then last week, we talked about his battle, his really short battle, with Goliath. And so he has just recently defeated Goliath, and this happens in the beginning of 1 Samuel chapter 18. It says, "Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved David as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and he gave it to David along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt." And we might be tempted to use this verse to say that a friend shares what they have. And that's sort of true, but there's a lot more going on in this covenant thing where Jonathan is giving things to David. It's more than just sharing things. What Jonathan is doing is he is making a public proclamation. He's making a public statement about how he feels about David. He is saying in a very public way, I admire this person. I love this person. This person is my friend. And in many ways, he's saying, what's mine is his. But it goes even deeper. He says, I care about this person, and I care about him more than I care about my property. That's the proclamation that Jonathan is making about David. A friend, in the definition, a friend is someone whom we have a bond of affection, someone we are fond of, someone whom we like. But everyone wasn't fond of David in this time period. Everyone didn't like David in this time period. In verses 6 through 8, it says, when the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, talking about Goliath, when they were returning home after that whole battle and everything that happened, the women came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul. And with singing and dancing and joyful songs with tambourines and lyres, they danced and they sang, Saul has killed his thousands, and David has killed his 10,000s. Saul was very angry, and this refrain, this thing that people kept singing and cheering about, really displeased King Saul. He didn't like the fact that David was getting more credit, was getting more whatever, getting more praise from the people. He didn't like it at all. As a matter of fact, the next day, he tries to kill David by throwing a spear at him at a banquet inside the house. I don't know how many times you go around throwing spears inside your house, but it's a noticeable thing, right? Somebody throws a spear at my house, we're going to know. We're going to notice. It's going to be a big deal. But David escapes. And through the next several chapters of 1 Samuel, we're in chapter 18, we're going to end up in chapter 23 in just a moment. But through the next several chapters, David is constantly on the run. He is trying to evade King Saul. He's trying to get away from King Saul. He's trying to do everything he can to keep King Saul from killing him, because that's exactly what Saul wants to do. And why does he want to kill him? That's a kind of a strange thing to do, to just decide to kill someone who took care of a battle that no one else in the army would do. It talks about David being elevated to high positions, Saul giving David missions and jobs and things to go do, and everything that David goes and does, he's very, very successful at. Why does Saul want to kill David? I think there's kind of 2 or 3 main reasons. The first one being, David is anointed to be the next king. You know, normally in kings and lineages and how that all works is, if the dad is the king, who becomes the king next? The son, right? The son becomes the king. That should be Jonathan. But they already know. Everybody knows it's not. It's going to be David. David is also, like I said, he's successful. Everything it seems that David puts his mind to and puts his hand to, he's being successful at it. And in short, David is blessed. And so Saul is jealous. Saul is jealous, and he wants to get David out of the way so more of that praise will come to him, and so that his son will be the next king, and a variety of other reasons. Our main text this morning will be from 1 Samuel chapter 23, where we'll talk about and pull some illustrations from how Jonathan treats David. It says this, while David was in the desert, he's off running from Saul again, trying to escape, hiding basically in the desert. While David was in the desert, he learned that Saul had come out to take his life. Saul had gathered a bunch of men, like 300 or 1,000 or something like that, and began to march out to go find David. Saul came out to take David's life, and Saul's son, Jonathan, it says he went to David, and he helped him find strength in God. He said, "Don't be afraid. My father Saul will not lay a hand on you. You will be king over Israel, and I will be second to you. Even my father Saul knows this." He knows this. So here's Jonathan, the friend to David. The first lesson we can learn about being a friendship from Jonathan's actions here are that a friend goes out and goes into your experiences. When you have a friend, That person wants to join you in your experiences, whether that's joyful or whether that's sorrow. Whether that's a reason to be happy or maybe something terrible has happened in your life. A friend is a person who will enter into that experience with you. David goes into the desert. He doesn't hang out at the palace. He doesn't stay where it's super comfortable. He goes out and he finds David hiding out in the desert. He doesn't just stand by and look from afar and go, man, I'll pray for you. I hope it goes well. He goes out and he goes to be with his friend. The second thing we can learn from Jonathan's actions is that a friend will encourage you. A friend will encourage you. Now, there's some friends that come along when things aren't so great, and they come along and they enter into your experience with you, right? But the whole time they're there, it's kind of miserable. You had a friend like that? Right? It's all about, some people are like, oh yeah. Yeah, I've had a friend like that. You're like, thanks for coming. Could you please leave now? Sometimes that does happen. A friend will come and the whole time they're there, it's really just about them. Or maybe they give bad advice. Maybe they're not really encouraging. Think about Job. You're going to go back and read about Job and his friends. They didn't really give him great advice. They're like, man, why don't you just go ahead and curse God and die? That's a good plan. So at least they were there. They entered into his experience, but they weren't very encouraging to Job. But that's not how David is. David goes there to help him find strength in God. He says, don't be afraid. My Father will not lay a hand on you. And the third part is this. A friend will not be envious. A friend will not be envious. As Jonathan comes and talks to David, look at what he says about who's going to be king. He says, you, David, you are the one who's going to be king. This is coming from the guy who should be the next king. But instead, his friendship, remember his friendship, his admiration, his love of David is more important than all that other kind of stuff in his life. And so he goes to David and he encourages him. He's with him. But he's also not envious of him. He says, you're going to be the king. And in not so many words, he says, and I'm going to settle for being second. You're going to be there on the throne. You're going to be in the center of the room, and everybody's eyes are going to be on you, and I will be over here to the side. But I'll be with you all the way while you are the king. Jonathan wasn't envious of what was coming to David. When it comes to friends, I think Proverbs 17:17, the first half of that short proverb sums it up the best. It says, a friend loves at all times. A friend loves at all times. I'm sure you can read this and see the truth in that this is a true friend. A real friend, one who loves at all times, not just when things are going well, not just when things are happy, not just when things are fun. No, a friend, a true friend, a real friend, loves at all times. Especially when the bottom falls out. Especially when there is no more fun. A friend loves when sickness comes and seems to linger and we're not sure how the outcome is going to look. A friend sticks around when the money is gone. A friend sticks around when hope seems to be gone. When all there seems to be is nothing but despair. A friend sticks around. A friend stays around. When there's absolutely no benefit for being a friend is there anyway. Now I want to stop you for a moment, maybe from a temptation that you might be having. You're probably thinking about somebody right now that you're like, yeah, I've had someone that was a friend, and when things got bad, that friend seemed to disappear. When the going got rough, my friend got going, and I haven't seen him since. When the situation was bad, my friend was gone. But that's not who we're talking about today, because honestly, that person's not really a friend. And so instead, I want you to think about a different person. I want you to think about yourself. I want you to think about yourself. True or false? You can only control yourself. True or false? True or false? Okay. I can only control me. You can only control you. True or false? Are you sure? I don't think I believe you. I can only control me. You can only control you. True or false? Okay. I think we're all on board with that, right? I've tried to control Jerry Don for the year and a half I've been here. Hopeless cause. Hopeless. Howard's about the same. Yeah. Yeah. Talk to your spouses about how this has worked out for you, you know. And the one question that each one of us needs to ask ourselves is, what kind of friend am I? What kind of friend am I? Our good friends, Cindy and Lane Ormerod. Some of y'all have met them because they came here to visit us. I think it was in the early fall or the late summer. They were here on a Wednesday night. Some of y'all got to meet them. But Lane and Cindy Ormerod were friends and are friends to our family. We've known them for about 15 years. They are and they have been friends to our children. I've told the story before about how they came. Matter of fact, was it Shayla or was it Darian? I don't know. It must have been Darian. Came to an elementary band concert in a gymnasium. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to an elementary band concert that's being held in the gymnasium, but it's not the Philharmonic, right? It's not. It's a bunch of young kids learning to play an instrument. And it's in a gymnasium where the echoes and the sounds are all kind of crazy. But they came to those things for our children. Lane and Cindy were there for us. They stood by my side when Cher went through her brain surgery. A scary, scary time in our life. They've helped us move houses while we lived in the Washington area more times than I can count. They were at my retirement ceremony. Last summer I mentioned that, they came and they stayed with us for a few days. Just last month, some of y'all know that we went up to Seattle to go to a funeral of a girl that, not her, but her father, a girl that we had fostered for several years. Her father died, and we went up there for the funeral. Guess where we stayed? We stayed with Lane and Cindy Ormerod, our friends. They opened up their house to us because they're the kind of friends who love at all times. And so I want to ask myself, I want to ask you to ask yourself, what kind of friend am I? What kind of friend are you? Specifically, what kind of friend am I to the people around me? Madison read that scripture earlier during our song service from Hebrews chapter 10. I want to look at it again for just a second. It says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another all the more as you see the day approaching." And too many people have taken this verse and made the primary issue of this verse the meeting together. Like the old King James said, "Forsake not the assembly," as some are in the habit of doing, right? And some of y'all, if you were raised in the church, you probably have it pounded in your head over and over again. You better not forsake the assembly. You better not forsake the assembly. But that is not the primary thing that this verse is talking about. The main focus is about spurring one another on towards love and towards good deeds. And then to encourage one another. All the more as you see the day coming. All the more as you see the day of the Lord approaching. To encourage, to spur. To encourage, to spur. That is the main focus. Jesus asks Peter in John chapter 21 3 times. He says, "Peter, do you love me more than these?" He says, "Yes, Lord. You know that I love you." And Jesus says, "Feed my lambs." And again, Jesus says, "Peter, do you love me?" And he answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And Jesus says, "Take care of my sheep." And the third time he says to Peter, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter was hurt because Jesus had asked him this third time, "Do you love me?" And he said, "Lord, you know all things, and you know that I love you." And Jesus says, feed my sheep. Jesus made sure by repeating this over and over and over again. He made sure that Peter understood something that we need to understand today, that there is a direct connection between loving Jesus and loving other people. If you love Jesus, you will love other people because you can't love Jesus if you don't love other people. The two are directly connected, intertwined, interlinked, and inseparable. Jesus says, do you love me? And care for my people. Some of us have been misled, honestly. There's a little self-reflection here to think about for a minute. Some of us have been misled to believe that church is about coming to this building and singing some songs, reading some scripture, having some prayer, taking communion, putting some money in the plate, listening to a lesson, and that doing that, once we've completed all those tasks, my Christian obligation and my Christian service and my Christian duty is done. That I come here on Sunday and I do this, and this. I sing, I pray, put some money in the plate, I take collection, I listen to a sermon, I try not to fall asleep. And that when that's over, my Christian duty is done. My Christian duty is done. But in all honesty, that's not what church is about. As a matter of fact, that's not even what church means. If you don't know, the Greek word where we get the word church is ekklesia. Fancy word, nice word. Probably haven't used that in a sentence too much lately. But ekklesia, all ekklesia means is a gathering of people. They could gather for anything. But ekklesia means gathering of people. People coming together, because the church is about people. People coming together, people caring for each other, people each other. And we can see this so clearly in the first church. The first church right after the day of Pentecost, when Peter and the other apostles were talking, the tongues of fire came down on them. They were talking and everybody heard them in their own native language. You probably remember this. As in Acts chapter 2, and at the end of Acts chapter 2, we get this picture of what the first church looked like. And I'm going to read it, and I want to ask you that the words that are in white, I want you, better than you answered my true or false question earlier, I want you to say those words out loud. Bring it up here, the words that are in white, or sort of bluish white. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together, and they had everything. They sold their property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to do what? In the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and they ate with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. Most of what it means about being the church is about being together. About being together as friends. Because if we are after God's own heart, then we will have a heart of a friend. If we're after God's own heart, then we will have the heart of a friend who enters into the experience of others around us, a friend who brings encouragement, and a friend who celebrates the successes of others. You know, at the end of Toy Story 3, Andy's about to go off to college, and he ends up meeting Molly, the little girl at the daycare center, who needs a friend. And he gives her his box of toys, and at the bottom of it is Woody, what's been his favorite toy all his life. And this is what Andy says as he finally decides to hand Woody over to Bonnie. Listen to what he says. Now Woody, he's been my pal for as long as I can remember. He's brave, like a cowboy should be. and kind and smart. But the thing that makes Woody special, the thing that makes Woody special, he says, is that he will never give up on you. Ever. He'll be there for you no matter what. Woody will be there for you no matter what. The truth is in our lives that we can make mistakes. Fair-weathered friends are nice and they stick around as long as everything's cool, as long as everything's copacetic, as long as everything's going well. But sometimes the bottom falls out due to life circumstances, due to sickness, due to financial ruin, whatever else. Sometimes, though, the bottom falls out because I do something stupid, because I make a poor choice, because I say something that I probably shouldn't have said. And a friend sticks around no matter what. It's not about being right and being perfect, and I'll be friends with people as long as they'll be friends with me. I'll be friends with people as long as you don't ever mess up and do something really dumb. A friend is someone who sticks around even when it gets rough, even when that rough, tough, muddy, sticky, messy situation is caused by me or by you. We have the greatest friend in the world than Jesus Christ. That while we were sinners, while we were sinning, Jesus came and died for me while I was sinning. For you, in the middle of your sin, in the middle of your poor choice, Jesus said, I'm your friend. I like you. I love you. And so much so that I will take your place, the punishment for your poor choices. My love for you is more important than my comfort, than possessions, than life itself. And Jesus takes the road to the cross for us because of his friendship. You know, I want to issue a challenge to you this morning to think about us. I want to encapsulate this a little bit to us. Look around the room. Yeah, go ahead. Ben, you can look backwards. Look around the room. Look at the people who are in this room with you. And there's some back there that we can't see that they're in class right now. But I want to issue a challenge to you. That coming to church is not as much about you getting your tank filled, although sometimes I know that you need to get your tank filled because life is rotten sometimes, right? Can I get amen, right? Oh yeah. Sometimes life is rotten and you need your tank filled, and this is a place where you can do that. But more times than none, we need to be the people. I need to be the person. You need to be the person who is going to people and blessing them and encouraging them and hopefully filling their tank a little bit. Because we can all be like, well, I don't, Pastor, I don't feel filled. I haven't been filled in a while. I haven't been taken care of. My needs haven't been met. That's not what church is about. Let us spur one another on towards love and good deeds. Let us encourage one another all the more as we see the day of the Lord coming. Let's be the kind of friends that people really, really want because they can't find those friends anywhere else in this world. When they come here, whether it's the people sitting here right now today or it's the stranger that's going to walk in the door tomorrow or next Sunday, let's go to them and let's encourage them, to strengthen them and to fill them and to show them the love and the friendship of the Lord. I'm asking you to not be selfish. Right? I'm asking you to, let's be honest here. I'm asking you to not be selfish, to give of yourself, to give of your time to the people around you. And by doing so, you'll make the world a little bit more the way it's supposed to be. Right? If Jesus isn't the Lord of your life, I want to give you the opportunity to do that this morning as well. Because He is the friend who is the friend while you're in the middle of your mess of life. And it's not about straightening up your life so that you can come and be a Christian. It's not straightening up your life so that you can come and follow Jesus. It starts with deciding to follow Jesus, and in the process, hopefully your life gets a little bit better. But it was while you were sinning, while you were in the middle of your sin, when things were imperfect, when your life was a total mess like it might be right now, Jesus loved you so much that He died for you. I want to give you the opportunity that I'm going to say a prayer here in a moment. I'll be up here in the front for a few minutes. If you'd like to come talk to me, you can talk to Ricky over here, you can talk to Jerry Don over here, you can talk to Howard over here, or you can just grab anyone else around here. Don't let this morning go away that you don't grab a hold of the best friend that you could ever have in this world, in Jesus, okay? Let's pray and we'll be done. Lord, I thank you for being our friend. I thank you that you've loved us so much, that you care for us, that you chose to die for us. Help us to be the encouragement that this world needs. Help us to be the encouragement in this body of believers that these believers need. Help us to look beyond the routine of Sunday worship. We know the things we do in our song, in our prayer, in our study, in our communion, that they are pleasing to you. We know that they are. But let's help us to not stop there. That we will give of ourselves. That we will talk to somebody. That we will make a friendship maybe where one doesn't exist. And that we will encourage. That we will walk alongside someone who is in need. And that through that, this body of believers will grow stronger and stronger and stronger. That the hope that we have, the unity that we have, the friendship that we have will be a beacon of light for our communities. That they will know that Christ lives in us. Forgive us when we fall short. We know that you love us anyway. Pick us back up and dust us off and send us on our way with encouragement and strength. We want you to be our God. We want to be your people. Lord, help us in that endeavor. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. Okay, thank you.